People sometimes ask me why I started watching K-dramas this year. Is it the over-the-top storylines, the gorgeous visuals, the emotionally provocative OSTs, the fact that it's usually only one season? Since there aren't any movies out recently where you want me to talk about Trolls 2, I figured why the hell not? Let's take a spoiler-free look at all the shows I've watched in the first half of 2020. It also needs to be noted that these are all fun and enjoyable to watch. Some are just better constructed than others. The first one I watched was Vagabond. Now, in my opinion, I think Vagabond is really accessible, especially if you've never seen a K-drama before. Part of it because of how action-heavy it is. A lot of the action sequences and the set pieces are really high-budgeted. They're really entertaining to watch. Also, they do have a change of location. I believe it's in Morocco, which I think was really nice and refreshing to watch. I think one of the big things I really enjoyed about this show, though, is the chemistry between Singi and Suzy. They're really good together, and I still think that they're probably my favorite on-screen duo. Interestingly enough, because it's not exactly a romance kind of drama, there are accidental, awkward, intimate moments because it has to fall into, those K-drama tropes. But I did think that their chemistry was really nice together, and it was really fun to watch them interact with one another. That being said, I definitely want to see more of Singi and his nephew. They were my favorite bits of the whole show, and those flashback sequences especially were really heartwarming to watch. I don't know, do a spin-off show or something, please. Now, with that being said, there are some issues that I have with it. I found the camera work really frustrating, especially with the action sequences. They were so shaky. The camera work really let down the action set pieces, and I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I find it really distracting. Also, I thought the ending really disappointed me because they tried to set up essentially a second season. I didn't think that was a really organized way to do it. Yeah, I thought that was kind of weak. I think it's getting a second season, and I think it should because it is a good show. I don't know, I wasn't particularly fond of how it ended. The next thing I watched was Kingdom. Now, I've talked about this previously on my channel. I made a whole YouTube video on it, so go watch that. I don't really want to talk more about it, but I, in general, think it's fantastic because it's much shorter and they were given much more creative freedom thanks to Netflix. They didn't have to, conform to the typical television structure. I myself am not a big fan of ancient historical dramas, but I gave this a chance because it is shorter and because there is zombies. And I did think it's really interesting. Second season was definitely more politically driven, but I think it was interesting enough by that point that I could keep watching it. Again, the ending wasn't great. The last 20 minutes of the last episode of season 2 again set up another season, and I really don't know why they do this. Whether they get a third season or not, I'm not 100% sure. I feel like they will because Kingdom is a hugely popular drama. Overall, it's really good, so definitely go check that out as well. The next one I watched was Signal, which is a 2016 drama about a cold case profiler who finds a mysterious walkie-talkie that lets him talk to a detective in 1989. The most important thing, in my opinion, was the science fiction concept, and I think what it did through its execution was really well done because I didn't know if they could keep that up for 16 episodes. I definitely think the way the script works really developed the characters and made it much more interesting. Aside from all the science fiction elements, the drama is still a crime show, and I definitely think it leans into that more. The way they make relationships between those characters, I don't know, I just find it really interesting the way they dealt with it. It's also important to note as well because this is a really different drama to what you're mostly going to expect with K-dramas. There's no romance plot. A lot of the characters are quite, not really dark, but they're more internal. They don't walk around yelling stuff. Just the color palette of it alone is really dark and cold, but it's definitely worth the watch. Signal is so interesting, and I think the concept just blew me away. Now, on the complete opposite spectrum of that, I watched School 2017, which is a high school slice of life, coming of age, romance, drama, what more can I say? In truth, I watched it because Sejong was in it, and I guess in that respect, it did deliver. I actually did enjoy watching it. I think the characters were fun, and as someone who just recently graduated high school, I think it's interesting that I can watch these kind of high school dramas and kind of laugh and be like, yeah, you gotta do your exams, suck it. That being said, this is one of the weakest shows on this list because it is not well made. What I meant was the overly saturated shots. It really bothers me. I know a lot of dramas like to do this, and it's I really don't like it, and it's so bright. Another thing I really picked up on is the kind of sound I don't know, they just messed up the sound. They didn't get room tone or something. So it's really noticeable when you're watching it and you just hear the click of an audio track. I also think that was really poorly written, in my opinion. They kept shoving in too many character arcs. Like almost every classmate got a character arc, and it wasn't even handled well. Characters would just be like, oh, I have a problem, and then they'll deal with it for 20 minutes, and then I guess it just goes away. It also has really infuriating plot lines. There are like bullies or like mean parents, and they'll like horribly ruin someone's life for like episodes, and then by the end of it, they're kind of just, oh, they stood up to them. I guess that's fun. Like people could get arrested for that stuff. School 2017. I guess it's fun to watch, but it's also really annoying. Following that, we have Itaewon Class. Personally, I think this is one of my favorite dramas. It's really awesome. It was just so enjoyable. The characters were so likable and the plot was really motivating. They have really well-written characters. For example, Jo Yi-so is probably one of the best drama characters I've seen recently, because her character is essentially a psychopath, so she doesn't conform, I guess, to a lot of the stereotypical tropes. Like, she'll yell at someone and slap someone, and I think that kind of twist on character is really refreshing to watch. Part of the reason why Itaewon Class is so good is because of the antagonist. The CEO is scary and he's mean, but he's not evil, so you kind of resonate with his character as well. You kind of understand what he's doing. Also, the soundtrack is so good. What I did have a problem with is I didn't feel like the romance arc was particularly necessary. I was reading some like posts about people reviewing it, and a lot of people have said that the last few episodes seem like it's from a completely different drama, and I completely agree with that, and it felt a bit wonky to me. Also, the romance, I don't think the ending pair would have been my preference. I am actually kind of considering whether Itaewon Class would have worked better without the romance entirely, but I do like the character relationships, and I do get that it's an important, I guess, factor to their characters. They're just, you know, a bit wonky for me. But all in all, I think Itaewon Class had like the best, most cathartic moments ever. The next one is Crash Landing on You. Yes, the one that everyone loves to talk about. I do really like it. It's an interesting play on the Wizard of Oz concept. The North Korean setting is really interesting, and I do love the fish out of water narratives. I think those are really fun to watch. The main two characters are really likable and they have really great chemistry together. And I also think the second leads were really fun to watch, and I definitely think they deserved a lot more screen time. All in all, Crash Landing on You is a really popular drama, and for good reason, because it is a really enjoyable watch. The next drama I watched was Hi Bye Mama. I think this is one of the most underrated dramas ever, and it's so good, like really good. It's quirky and lighthearted, all the characters are likable, but it's also really emotionally investing. It balances this weird like vibe of being really upsetting and emotionally impactful, but at the same time it's also beautifully written. There isn't an antagonist. The way it's promoted, it feels like it'd be a romance drama, and it's got hints of love and romance, but it deals heavily with grief and regret and family dynamics, and I think that kind of focus is so important, and it was something I haven't really seen before. I was so happy when they landed the ending. The ending was so perfect. Like, a lot of these ones I personally didn't enjoy the ending because I felt the ending was wonky, but Hi Bye Mama was perfect from start to finish. It's so emotional, but it's so beautiful. It's just, everyone needs to watch this show. Extracurricular. I found it a bit funny because it is dark and edgy, but at the same time it also isn't. Like, they'll have characters swearing and stuff, but they never really push the line of what is allowed in like television programs. So like it's violent, but for example at the start there's a scene where it's about to get violent and you think it's gonna go really bloody and gory, but it kind of goes off camera and you're like, oh yeah, okay, fine. By the end, I just really hated the main character. I thought the cast though was really great. Like, this is one of the few dramas where I'm like, whoa, this is so interesting. I had planned to do a video essay on Extracurricular. I was gonna do a video essay on how it's a tragedy and how the main character's, flaw of not being able to talk to adults or trusted people ends up leading them to all these massive consequences, but I didn't. I do hope Extracurricular gets a second season as well. The ending was quite open to interpretation, but at the same time, if it doesn't get a second season, I'm also okay with that because I don't really know where it would go. I'm quite happy with it leaving it where it was. The next one I watched was Strangers from Hell. It's got vibes of like the Joker, maybe Taxi Driver, and it's got these inspiration from like Psycho and Shining. So it's one of those psychological horror kind of stories. It's really dark. And I thought Extracurricular was edgy. This was like the next level. Besides from the main protagonist and his girlfriend, which I like, those two together are really likable, every other character was so creepy and frustrating and really like off-putting. And I know that's the point of the show. It's so hard to watch. That's not to say this show is bad, because it is so good. I think it might actually be the best written and the best directed, and the production value of like the sets was amazing. I get the ending, like I get what they were going for, and I definitely think it was believable. I just think that editing wise or like scripting wise, they could have done it a little bit better, because there were times at the end where I was like, what actually happened? I don't really understand what happened. Because it also deals with a lot of like dream sequences, and this is what you thought it was, but it's not. And it's a little bit tedious at times. It's a bit confusing. It's such a good drama, but I don't really want to talk about it anymore because it's so dark. So after Strangers from Hell, I wanted to watch something a lot more lighthearted. So I decided to watch Fight My Way. Fight My Way is about 4 high school friends who have grown up and they're trying to adapt to adulthood. And along the way, they fall in love with one another. So yeah, it's a coming of age romance. It's a super light watch. It's quirky and it's fun, and it doesn't really try to redefine the genre. It just does it fairly well. And the characters are all generally likable, especially the second couple. I really like the second couple. For me, the main character's relationship kind of dulls when they kind of get together. I know that's the point of the show, but I don't know, it just feels like sometimes the script didn't really know what to do with characters, and some of the narrative beats felt a bit contrived, where you're like, yeah, that could have been avoided totally if you just did this one thing. Also on that, I think the antagonists in Fight My Way are fairly weak, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because I actually do think, because Fight My Way is supposed to be really lighthearted, it doesn't really get you angry. You know, the antagonists are all generally like pretty, I don't know if benign the word, but like, so for example, Park Seo-joon, his character's a MMA fighter, and his kind of rival isn't really someone that you think can beat Park Seo-joon. Like, you know, the main character can beat him. It's more like, oh, he's just trying to avoid the fight. And there's also kind of love triangle stuff, but the characters aren't really that threatening. Especially if you've seen stuff like School 2017 or Itaewon Class, it's not as aggravating as those dramas. It's a lot more lighthearted, and especially after Strangers from Hell, I definitely needed something as light as this. Let me know if you have any recommendations, or if you've actually seen any of these. If you've come this far, you probably have. Also, let me know if spoiler discussions is something people would be interested in, because I was kind of hesitant to do them. But I'm running out of video ideas and movies aren't coming out. I need to edit this now. Bye.